The Boston Uprising did not have the season they were looking for last year, going 10-14 with a -9 map differential and no tournament appearances. They lost in play-ins to Florida and Toronto. So they decided to go get Pre as the general manager, formerly with the Washington Justice. And Pre walked into the office and he found buckets of money everywhere. He was swimming in budget, right? From all the years of Boston just fielding pretty poor teams and going full budget. And he said, "All right, boys, I'm fielding a absolute banger roster, 8 players, 8 rings between them. The streets are done," right? And he forms this monster roster. On DPS, Decay from Washington with him. Striker back to Boston for the 15th millionth time. Birdring comes out of retirement for this. On tank, he brings Smurf, the Roll Star from the Seoul Dynasty, and then later brings in Kalios again from Washington to throw a little bit of Washington justice in there, right? And then on support, Lee Jae-gon and Izayaki, maintaining the synergy from Shanghai. And then he would add Twilight after, who again, just adds a ring to this roster, straight up. On the staff point of view, you get Dongsu as head coach, who was most recently an assistant coach for season 4 Shanghai when they won it all. You get Jidset as an assistant coach, which is kind of a head scratcher. He was the head coach for LW Blue before Owl. He doesn't even have a Liquipedia page. And on top of that, there's some shady stuff where he stole prize winnings and kind of power tripped over the contracts and so that they couldn't take legal action or anything. So it just looks weird even without the shady stuff. But Birdring seemed kind of happy on Twitter. So I guess if Birdring's happy, it's okay maybe. I don't really know. Then he brings in Supreme as an assistant manager, and I'm just happy he's not in a coaching role. That boy should not be let near our scrim block. I do not want to see it. I don't want to hear him talk about Overwatch. I want him to keep the conversation to how's the weather doing? How's your mom doing? The lobster's pretty good tonight. That's all. I don't want to hear him talk about the actual game. If he says, "Tracer, you should go over," no, you gotta kick him out. He has to go. He has to go. It's over for him. So this team has a lot of talent. That's no mistake. There's a lot of talent on this team. They wouldn't have so many rings if there wasn't a lot of talent, right? So let me go over these guys from a gameplay perspective and then also kind of from a mental perspective, because you just kind of have to when you're talking about Decay, Kalios no play, even Birdring, Striker, who got kicked off Boston last season. You have to talk about the mental, but I'll talk about the gameplay first. So for supports, the support line really is very strong and doesn't have a lot of holes that I can see. So Lee Jae-gon didn't have a fantastic transition to 5v5. He wasn't as dominant on the Lucio as he was. So you could say, well, maybe his dominance was just a effect of how good Shanghai was as a team, so let him do that. Or maybe it was more effective in 6v6 or whatever you want to say. Clearly, with players like Chio, Funny Astro, his style of Lucio is still very good because Chio and Funny Astro were insane Lucios last year. So if Lee Jae-gon can just have a bounce back season, look anything like he did in season 4, it's going to look pretty good for him. I think that this change of scenery could be pretty beneficial for him. You get to maintain your synergy with Izayaki, and you get to have a new coaching direction. You kind of get a little bit of life back in your career, is what I'm thinking. Not like he was bad last season, he was still above average, but from what we know him as being, not quite there. Then you have Izayaki, who was just the best Zenyatta last season straight up. I also think he was the best Brigitte in the Jotes meta despite playing in APAC. I thought he looked absolutely insane. If you ask me, those 2 qualities alone make him a phenomenal pickup, especially when you add in the addition of Twilight as a flex support. Whenever you're playing double flex, you get the best Zen, you get a phenomenal Brig, and he doesn't have to play the other stuff. Before, whenever Shanghai wanted to run double flex, you'd get Lee Jae-gon on BAP, which isn't ideal. Now, you get a Twilight, Izayaki, double flex support BAP Zen. That sounds insane to me. Just absolutely insane. I'm very excited. Izayaki kind of got a lot of flack for being Roll Star. I think he wasn't in my Roll Star. I had Vindame over him, but he was my number 5. I think people are kind of sleeping on how good he was in the midseason madness and how good his Brig was. I think they need to pay a little bit more attention to APAC. Because yes, while the DPS line did carry a lot in Jotes, Izayaki was absolutely insane. Then we have Twilight, who honestly, as a Toronto fan, did disappoint me a bit because with the reputation he has, you expect him to be absolutely elite. I didn't feel that last year. It felt like Twilight wasn't pushing against the Toronto mediocrity. It felt like he was kind of going down with it. And yes, he was probably one of the best Brigs in Jotes as well. And his Ana was still quite good. I still think he was maybe a tier below elite. With this team, you would hope he is elite again. Because with Toronto, yeah, it wasn't star-studded across the board, right? You were running Aldo, Finale. It wasn't looking great. But on this team, there's no excuse. It's either like you're elite or you're not with this, I think. What I'm seeing for this rotation is probably more of a Twilight on Ana, probably Bap, and then Izayaki taking the Zen Brig role. I don't know who the Kiriko would be, because neither of them got a lot of showtime on it in playoffs. I'm leaning towards Izayaki, and that for me is just because you already have synergy with Lee Jae-gon. He was already a really good Zen, so I'm thinking, how good is he with the Kiriko projectiles? And another benefit is there's 2 new supports coming out. Certainly one of these 3 very talented players. Surely one of these players can pick up the new support pretty fast, is what I would guess. Then you have the tanks, and I think Smurf's just a goat. He won All-Star for a reason. He was super flexible. The best flex tank, I would say, that could play it all. Obviously, his Winston is what's really elite here, but he's not hurting his chances of winning on any hero, right? And honestly, because of that, I could kind of see Kalios being a detriment. Like, he's here for off-tank, and Azari was alright. His Junker Queen was maybe a bit over-aggressive, I would say. Actually, not maybe a bit. It was straight up, like, just running it down, W key spam the whole time. Not a lot of push and pull there, not a lot of nuance to his game. I'd say most of his off-tanks are pretty unremarkable, and I think that it's a really unnecessary pickup, to be honest. Smurf looked good to great on every hero, right? I don't think Kalios' off-tanks are even much better than Smurf's. I don't think his team play, I think his team play is definitely miles below Smurf in terms of tempo control, map control, all that. So it's like, if you spend too much time fucking around with Kalios here, you're taking time away from Smurf, you're having your entire team maybe change how they play the game depending on who's in. And it's like, I think it could be a mistake. Now, this is only a mistake if there is mismanagement or misjudgment from the coaching staff, and otherwise it's a benefit because, you know, especially with new tanks coming out, you want to increase your chances of having a good tank, like, quickly. But I think Kalios is just an unnecessary pickup. I think Smurf, he has the tools to be that guy across everything, and I think it would have been better for him to be, you know, your go-to guy the entire time. I don't think I want to see Smurf get subbed out, even in a hard Zarya meta, probably. That's just me. You'll let me know if you disagree, I'm sure. So now DPS. This is where most people have problems with the potential of the roster, right? Undoubtedly, there's a lot of talent here, but we're probably safer picks if you were trying to craft an all-star team than Decay, Striker, and Birdring, right? So starting off with Decay, he needs to have a good season because he's been good since he joined Owl, but he's always been on a bad team. So at some point, when is he a bad player? I don't think he is right now. But if this is a poor season, if he doesn't perform here, the narrative needs to be a bit more solidified, or it will be a bit more solidified. Because we saw him very good last year, mostly in the Tracer Sojourn role. And that's not what role he's supposed to be playing in this roster, right? He's supposed to be your flex DPS. Striker's not, Birdring's not your flex DPS. This guy is here to play your Genjis, your Echoes, your stuff like that. He will play the Tracer, I would guess, in a hit-scan Tracer meta. But then again, you have Striker, who's one of the all-time greats at the character. Probably, I would say historically, from the beginning of Overwatch League, the best Tracer in the game is Striker, right? So you're competing for that spot. When evaluating Decay's value to this team, it's on those kind of Genji characters, those Echo characters. And if I'm comparing his Genji to other top NA players, Stalker, Pelican, Kevster, Proper, Heesang, even Alpha Yi, I'm not taking Decay in my top 5, to be honest. It'd be tough. It'd be tough for me to put him there. I think he could, but he really needs to prove it because we were not raving about his Genji in the kickoff clash in the midseason madness. That's not what we were talking about with Washington. It wasn't like Decay was definitely doing well, but I thought Happy was outperforming him. I thought his Genji was adequate. I didn't think it was a star-studded Genji. And that's where we're at. So I do have some concerns if there is another hard Genji meta like we've seen in the past. If Echo gets really good, I really don't know how I'm feeling about Decay. Striker proved that he could do it on Reaper in the playoffs this season, and whether or not he's the best Tracer on the team, it doesn't really matter unless it's a double flex meta and you get Tracer Genji, because if you don't believe in his Tracer right now, you have Decay right there. So you're kind of chilling. I kind of just see him as the Reaper Tracer player for this team, and that's basically where I put him at. For Birdring, he left the league at his peak. He was looking like an absolute beast in Season 4, and if he maintains that form, this is very dangerous for anyone that goes up against him. We have to remember how absolutely insane he was. And even if Birdring isn't that guy anymore, for some reason he takes a break, his mechanics have gone, I doubt it. You're pretty okay because you have Striker and Decay who can both step in on the hit scan. Striker Decay on a hit scan plus Tracer comp sounds quite good to me still. I think Birdwing does make it more deadly, but it still sounds pretty good. That's what I really like about this DPS line, is that even if one of them flunks out, if you have a bad Decay, Striker, or Birdwing, you have a very solid hit scan plus Tracer comp in any combination of these 3 players, which I think is very important because that is a very common meta composition, hit scan plus Tracer, throughout Overwatch League history, right? So you have a very solid comp even if one of these pickups go wrong, and if they all go right, you're looking insane. It's just Decay on the flex, on the true flex, that you have to question if you can really push the boundaries of being an elite team. That's where it's at. Now, to address the mental aspect real quick, there's with Decay, Striker, Birdwing, even Kalios, you do have some question marks, right? Because Decay's been known to be very hard to work with, dating back to Dallas. If you ask Crimzo, Striker had a bad moment last season where Huck straight out kicked him off and he said, no one player is more than the team, right? And then Kalios no play is an old one. That's a banger. He was not doing it. If you really want to reach, Birdwing even had some stuff back in the day as well. So it's like, I don't know, if this team goes south, you could see everyone's mental being in the ditch and it being a very tough uphill battle to get back to where they could be, what their potential is, right? And my argument to that is that Smurf has been credited to being a great leader in and out of game, and even just in the Seoul Dynasty vlogs from last season, he was very much the captain of that team, even though you'd say, oh, Prophet could be the captain. No, Smurf was definitely the captain. Prophet wasn't stepping up in a leadership role. It was Smurf. I trust Smurf's ability for them to smooth it out, and it kind of, I think what solidifies them believing in Smurf is that they didn't pick up Smurf just for his flexibility, because they got Kalios anyway. So it kind of feels like the leadership and Smurf as a player is what they really wanted, and that him being super flexible, it almost felt like a benefit, just like a plus. Whenever you're going to pick up an off tank anyway, right? If you weren't going to do that, then you were just picking him because he was the most flexible player. But no, I think they want him for his intangibles. It's very hard to speak on intangibles because we don't see them, right? That's the whole point. As fans, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But I believe in Smurf. If there's one player I believe is a phenomenal leader, it is Smurf. And so to end this off, I don't know where I'm going to power rank them, because I'm going to power rank them after I do all these previews. I'll try and get like 2 out a day if I can, if I have the time to. And then I'll do power rankings at the end there. But from right now, I'm thinking this team is going to be up there with Shock, Rain, Outlaws, you know, for top 5 NA at least. And if they're not top 5, it's definitely a disappointment. It kind of reflects poorly on a lot of these players who are not young. All these players are very established, and if they fuck up, there's not a lot to really excuse them. Also, comment down below who you want to see next, because I'll make some of these tomorrow, and you'll get them up tomorrow maybe, if there's enough likes, if I comment on it, whatever it is. So yeah, have yourself a good one, and deuces.